Beneath the dazzling lights of old Hollywood, where beauty reigned and legends were born, lurked a brutal reality no spotlight could hide. The stars we worshipped on screen often suffered in silence behind the scenes, mocked for their looks, rejected for their race, punished for their talent, or crushed by the very system that made them icons. These weren't just movie stars, they were survivors. In a world obsessed with perfection, they were told they'd never be enough, and some paid the ultimate price for fame. This is the dark side of the golden age, and the untold stories of 14 stars who were bullied, broken, but never forgotten. Marilyn Monroe, the girl who smiled through the storm. She was the picture of perfection, the dream girl in a white dress, standing over a subway grate, laughing like the world adored her. But behind Marilyn Monroe's famous smile was a child who had learned far too early that being invisible could be a form of survival. Born Norma Jean, passed from home to home, she was the girl no one claimed. In classrooms, she was teased for her tattered clothes and quiet voice. Other children had mothers to brush their hair and pack their lunches. Marilyn had silence and shadows. Hollywood didn't rescue her, it reshaped her. Her voice was softened, her hair bleached, her name erased. She became Marilyn, only when the studio said so. Even at the peak of her fame, powerful men laughed at her intelligence, branding her the dumb blonde, while she secretly read philosophy and wrote poetry no one bothered to publish. She longed to be taken seriously, to act on real stages with real roles. But she was told to smile, shake her hips, and stay quiet. She didn't. She started her own production company. She demanded better scripts. She fought for dignity in an industry that sold her image but never gave her a voice. And though the world remembers the icon, it often forgets the quiet strength of the girl behind the smile, the one who weathered storms with grace and never stopped reaching for something more. Judy Garland, the voice they tried to silence. She sang like the sky opening, a voice so full of ache and wonder it made time stop. But Judy Garland was never allowed to simply be a girl with a gift. From the moment she stepped onto an MGM soundstage, she became a product, a possession, a perfectly packaged dream. At just 13, she wasn't praised for her talent. She was picked apart. Too chubby, they said. Too plain. Her reward for raw brilliance was humiliation. Executives called her names to her face. They bound her in corsets, covered her in makeup, and fed her pills to control her weight, her energy, even her sleep. They told her when to eat, when to smile, when to shine, all while whispering that she was still never quite enough. They wanted her voice, but not her soul. They wanted Dorothy, but not Frances Gum, the girl she was before Hollywood renamed her. And yet, through every breakdown, every forced smile under studio lights, Judy Garland kept singing. Not for them, for herself. Because her voice, aching, defiant human, was the only part of her they couldn't completely cage. When she stood on stage, there was no pretending. Just the truth, raw and trembling. The world remembers the yellow brick road and ruby slippers. But long after the credits rolled, Judy carried the weight of a dream machine that chewed her up. And still, somehow, she kept the music playing. Bette Davis, the woman who wouldn't sit down. They told her she wasn't beautiful enough for the screen. Too sharp, too intense, too much. She didn't care. Bette Davis didn't come to Hollywood to be adored. She came to take up space, and she never apologized for it. In an industry built on obedience, she was all sharp edges and stinging wit. And they hated her for it. Producers called her difficult. Directors rolled their eyes. Co-stars whispered that she was hard to work with. But that was only because she refused to be quiet. She demanded better scripts, pushed back on lazy direction, and fought for characters that had bite. When studios tried to lock her into lifeless roles, she sued Warner Brothers, publicly, unapologetically, at a time when actresses were expected to smile and say yes. She lost the lawsuit. She kept going. They tried to bury her under the label of troublemaker. But Bette didn't flinch. She knew the truth. It wasn't her strength they feared. It was that she didn't need their approval to wield it. She made them nervous because she walked into every room like she belonged there. And she did. By the time she played Margot Channing in All About Eve, she wasn't acting, she was warning. "Fasten your seatbelts," she said. "It's going to be a bumpy night." And in that moment, Bette Davis wasn't just a star. She was a storm that Hollywood couldn't tame. Dorothy Dandridge, the spotlight that burned. She stepped onto the stage like she was born beneath a spotlight, poised, graceful, unforgettable. But for Dorothy Dandridge, that light was never warm. It was scorching. It illuminated her beauty while ignoring her pain. It praised her presence but denied her full humanity. Hollywood wanted her, but only in pieces. She was the first black woman to be nominated for a Best Actress Oscar. It was history. It was also a cage. Behind the applause was a door that never fully opened. She couldn't share the screen romantically with white actors. She couldn't play roles with dignity unless they were steeped in tragedy. She couldn't even stay in the same hotels where she performed, the same stages where she mesmerized crowds who would not have shared an elevator with her. Dorothy wasn't just fighting for roles. She was fighting for permission to exist beyond a stereotype. For every glamorous gown and movie poster, there were closed doors, cruel whispers, and almosts that never became yes. She had the poise of a queen, but Hollywood treated her like an illusion, admired from afar, never embraced. And yet, she never stopped daring to be seen. Every time she walked on screen, she made a quiet revolution feel like elegance. She didn't just perform, she claimed her space, even if the world wasn't ready to give it. Dorothy Dandridge didn't break through the system. She cracked it wide enough for others to walk in. Rita Hayworth, the woman they rewrote. Before she was Rita Hayworth, the ultimate screen siren, the fantasy of a generation, she was Margarita Carmen Cancino, a shy girl with dark hair, dancing in nightclubs with her father. She didn't look like a Hollywood star, they said. Too ethnic, too exotic, too real. So they changed her. They pushed her hairline back with electrolysis to reshape her face. They lightened her skin. They dyed her raven black hair red and gave her a new name, a new voice, a new version of herself, one the public would adore. But each change stripped her further from who she had been. The woman who smoldered on posters was a creation, a projection. Rita Hayworth became famous, but Margarita disappeared. Hollywood loved the illusion they built around her. Men worshipped her, women envied her, but few knew her. They saw Gilda, the femme fatale in satin gloves, not the woman who never felt she belonged in her own skin. Men go to bed with Gilda, she once said, but they wake up with me. And even then they left. Behind the fame was a woman caught between two worlds, the one she came from and the one she was molded into. The cost of transformation was invisibility. The more the world admired her, the more alone she became. Rita Hayworth was radiant, but she was also rewritten, repackaged, and nearly erased. And all she ever wanted was to be loved not for the mask, but for the girl underneath it. Natalie Wood, the girl who grew up too fast. She was barely old enough to ride a bicycle when Hollywood handed her a contract. Natalie Wood wasn't discovered, she was manufactured, her childhood traded for movie sets, studio tutors, and scripts she didn't understand but was told to memorize. While other little girls played with dolls, Natalie was pretending to feel emotions far beyond her years, learning how to cry on cue before she learned who she really was. By the time she became a teenager, the world already believed it knew her. The sweet little girl from Miracle on 34th Street had grown up, but no one wanted her to. The press picked apart her appearance, her relationships, her every move. Casting directors didn't know what to do with her. Too old for innocence, too young for sophistication. She was caught in between, and in that space, she was vulnerable. Hollywood didn't offer her guidance. It gave her pressure. It gave her headlines. It gave her fear that the next role might be her last. She was expected to be beautiful, talented, charming, obedient, but above all perfect. And when she made mistakes, the judgment was swift. Still, Natalie fought to find her voice. She took risks, challenged her typecasting, and refused to fade into nostalgia. She wanted to grow, to evolve, to be something more than the girl the world remembered. But growing up under a spotlight means every misstep becomes a spectacle, and every moment of doubt a headline. Hattie McDaniel, the applause she wasn't allowed to hear. She made history in a dress she wasn't allowed to choose, sitting at a table she hadn't been invited to, in a hotel that didn't want her there. When Hattie McDaniel became the first black person to win an Academy Award, it was supposed to be a triumph. But even that moment, that glittering golden night, was filtered through rules, restrictions, and reminders of where she did not belong. Before the cameras, she played maids, cooks, nannies, characters who smiled and served. Hollywood offered her roles soaked in stereotype and told her to be grateful. Critics from every side came for her. Some called her a sellout, others said she reinforced harmful images. But no one understood the tightrope she walked. She wasn't just an actress. She was the first to cross a forbidden line. And the toll for opening that door was carrying the weight of it alone. They didn't see the strength it took to exist in rooms that tried to erase her. They didn't hear the pride in her voice when she said, "I'd rather play a maid than be one." Because she knew. She knew what it was to clean houses, to scrub floors, to hear no before she even spoke. And she also knew that every line she delivered on screen carved a path, however narrow, for those who would come after. Hattie McDaniel didn't fit Hollywood's mold. She shattered it and paid the price in silence. Montgomery Clift, the quiet that screamed. There was something different about Montgomery Clift, a stillness, a tenderness, a vulnerability that wasn't performative. He didn't act like a leading man. He felt like a human being. In an era of square-jawed heroes and manufactured masculinity, Clift was an open wound. And Hollywood didn't know what to do with that. He wasn't bullied with fists or headlines. His was a more insidious kind of cruelty, the kind that isolates. The kind that whispers behind closed doors. The kind that labels a man sensitive like it's a weakness. He refused to play by the rules. He chose roles that were raw, conflicted, morally complex. He turned down easy fame for artistic truth. And in return, the industry treated him like a problem to fix. Off-screen, the pressure was unbearable. He lived in a world where being fully himself was dangerous, so he folded in. He became an expert at hiding in plain sight, smiling through interviews, disappearing between takes, drowning out the noise with silence. He was a star, yes, but one who burned inward. The camera loved him, but it never protected him. The same eyes that praised his beauty and brilliance looked the other way when the weight became too much. He wasn't the rebel. He wasn't the playboy. He was the soul behind the character, fragile, fearless, and far ahead of his time. Montgomery Clift didn't speak loudly. He didn't need to. His silence said everything Hollywood was too afraid to hear. Jean Harlow, the blonde they built. She lit up the screen like a flashbulb, all platinum hair, arched brows, and sultry charm. Jean Harlow wasn't just a star, she was a sensation. The original blonde bombshell. But beneath the peroxide and public worship was a woman carefully molded by others, shaped, styled, and scripted until the girl she had once been was barely visible beneath the glow. Her transformation wasn't a choice, it was a strategy. Studio executives bleached her hair, so often it burned her scalp. They redesigned her wardrobe, her voice, her posture. They taught her how to move, how to smile just enough, how to walk a line between allure and accessibility. She became a fantasy so potent that audiences forgot, or never knew. She was just 21 when she first rocketed to fame. A child in silver heels, made to play the world's most wanted woman. She was endlessly sexualized, but rarely respected. Critics dismissed her as decoration. Studios recycled her in role after role, a glamorous doll in a glass case. No one asked what she wanted to be. They only asked that she stay radiant, stay marketable, stay blonde. And yet, off-camera, Jean Harlow was sharp, funny, unfiltered. She read. She wrote. She dreamed of roles with depth, of shedding the mask and being seen as more than a symbol. But Hollywood didn't make room for complexity in its icons. They built Jean Harlow to shine, then locked her in the spotlight she couldn't escape. Anna May Wong, the role she was never allowed to play. She was born in Los Angeles, spoke flawless English, and dreamed of being a leading lady. But when Anna May Wong stepped onto a Hollywood set, she was suddenly a foreigner in her own country, exoticized, mistrusted, and typecast before she even spoke a word. The first Chinese-American movie star in history, and still, never allowed to truly belong. Hollywood loved how she looked, as long as it was through a lens of stereotype. She was cast as dragon ladies, submissive concubines, tragic victims. Always alluring, never central. Always mysterious, never human. She brought elegance and intelligence to every role, but no amount of brilliance could rewrite the parts they offered her. Then came the ultimate insult. The lead in The Good Earth, a film about a Chinese woman, was given to a white actress in yellowface. Anna was denied the role not because she lacked talent, but because it was considered unacceptable to show a Chinese woman in a romantic relationship with a Chinese man on screen. It was the role of a lifetime, and the rejection was deafening. So she left. She went to Europe, to the stage, to anywhere she could escape the invisible lines drawn around her. But even oceans away, the shadow of Hollywood followed her. Anna May Wong didn't just act. She endured. She carved a space in history with grace and defiance, knowing the story she most wanted to tell, her own, was the one they never let her play. Greta Garbo, the woman who vanished. She spoke with her eyes, haunting, distant, unknowable. Greta Garbo didn't chase the spotlight. The spotlight chased her. And when it got too close, she disappeared. Not with scandal, not with spectacle, just silence. Hollywood called her the divine Garbo. Audiences were obsessed with her elegance, her aloofness, the sense that she belonged to no one. But that image, mysterious, untouchable, was partly her armor. In an industry that devoured the personal, Garbo kept herself hidden. Not because she was cold, but because she had learned early on that being seen came at a cost she wasn't willing to pay. She was mocked for her privacy. Tabloids called her strange, cold, ungrateful. Directors tried to mold her into something warmer, more accessible. But Garbo never bent. She refused interviews, declined parties. She walked through fame like a ghost, present, yet never quite there. Even when she transitioned from silent films to talkies, her mystique remained intact. But behind the glamour was exhaustion. She was weary of being watched, of being misinterpreted, of being treated like a puzzle to be solved rather than a person to be understood. And then one day, at the height of her fame, she walked away. No goodbye tour. No curtain call. Just gone. Garbo didn't just reject the roles Hollywood gave her. She rejected the world that demanded her soul in exchange for its adoration. And in doing so, she became something no studio could ever manufacture. Free. Lupe Valles, the fire they feared. She didn't enter a room. She stormed it. Lupe Valles was lightning in high heels, too loud, too bold, too much for the buttoned-up world of 1930s Hollywood. But that was the point. She refused to be quiet in an industry that wanted women like her, Latina, foreign, different, to shrink, to smile politely, to blend in. Instead, she laughed too hard, danced too wildly, loved too fiercely, and Hollywood, fascinated and terrified, decided to turn her into a joke. They called her the Mexican Spitfire, a walking stereotype wrapped in a temper and a heavy accent. She was cast as hot-blooded, volatile, unpredictable. But what they sold as comedy was a cage. Valles could act, really act. She had range, discipline, screen presence. But those parts, the serious ones, they were never offered. They didn't want the woman, they wanted the myth. And still, she played along. She leaned into the chaos, played her roles to the edge, because that's what they gave her. But beneath the laughter was a deep frustration, a knowing. She saw what Hollywood was doing. She just couldn't stop it. Lupe Valles was too real for the mask they gave her. She didn't fit the mold, and she never tried to. And in a world that rewards silence and smiles, her biggest rebellion was that she was unapologetically loud. She was fire. And fire, no matter how you dress it up, will always make people nervous. Vivian Leigh, the beautiful disguise. She was Scarlett O'Hara, the Southern belle who bent a war to her will. She was Blanche DuBois, fragile and trembling beneath the weight of delusion. Vivian Leigh didn't just perform characters, she became them, body and soul. So completely, in fact, that few ever saw the woman behind the performance. And perhaps that was the greatest tragedy of all. She was grace incarnate, adored for her poise and precision, her luminous beauty and sharp intelligence. But behind the porcelain exterior, Vivian was fighting something invisible, a mind that betrayed her when the cameras weren't rolling. Her mood shifted like the wind, brilliant one moment, unreachable the next. Whispers spread. She was temperamental, unstable, difficult. They used those words because they were easier than saying what was true. She was suffering, and no one wanted to look too closely. The press called her performances haunting, never realizing they echoed real pain. Friends and directors stood in awe of her talent, yet recoiled from her unpredictability. And through it all, she remained devastatingly composed, offering the world what it wanted: elegance, discipline, magic. A woman so committed to her craft, she nearly disappeared inside it. Vivian Leigh paid a price for her brilliance, not in scandal but in silence. The spotlight that made her a legend never warmed her. It exposed her, magnified her struggle, and refused to look away. And still, she stood beneath it, poised, perfect, and breaking. Sal Mineo, the boy who didn't fit the frame. He was the sensitive one, the troubled kid with haunted eyes in Rebel without a cause. Sal Mineo didn't play the hero or the heartthrob, he played the outsider. And for a moment, the world noticed. He was nominated for an Oscar at 17. The future stretched ahead, like a golden promise. But Hollywood has a way of boxing people in. They loved Sal as long as he played broken boys. But when he grew up, when he wanted more, the roles vanished. He was too intense, too emotional, too ambiguous for a system that preferred its men simple and stoic. He didn't fit the frame, and they didn't want to adjust it. Off-screen, he faced another battle, one even harder to name out loud. In a time when living truthfully came with consequences, Sal lived carefully. Rumors circled. Studios distanced themselves. The phone stopped ringing. He had gone from rising star to forgotten footnote in record time, and not because he lacked talent, but because he challenged expectations simply by existing. Still, he kept creating. He directed, he returned to the stage, he carved out a quiet space where he could keep telling stories, even if the spotlight had moved on. What they saw as a career in decline was really a man reclaiming his voice. Sal Mineo wasn't a rebel without a cause. He had one, he just wasn't allowed to speak it. Fame may shine bright, but rarely tells the full story. Behind every photograph, every red carpet, every glowing review, there are hidden battles, quiet struggles, and private pain. These 14 stars weren't just performers. They were people navigating a world that demanded perfection while offering very little kindness in return. They gave us everything: their talent, their vulnerability, their light. And in doing so, they became immortal on screen, even as they were overlooked, misunderstood, or mistreated in life. But today, we remember them not just for their roles, but for their resilience, for daring to exist in a system that often tried to shrink or silence them. Their stories are more than history, they are reminders of how far we've come and how far we still have to go. If any of these stories moved you, made you think differently, or reminded you of someone's quiet strength, we'd love to hear your thoughts. Share your reflections in the comments. Let's give these legends a conversation they were once denied. And if you'd like to see more stories like this, stories that honor the humans behind the Hollywood myths, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss what's next. Because sometimes the most powerful stories are the ones whispered between the headlines.